Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today we're going to look at something a little bit different as I talk a little bit about genealogy and family history, which I realize on the surface doesn't seem to have anything to do with comics, but unexpectedly there is a bit of a tie for me, and that's what I want to show today is some comic-related drawings that I have here from my grandmother's sketchbook. So comics, of course, are a big part of my life. One of my big hobbies is collecting comics and making comics and reading comics. But also, in addition to that, I'm really into genealogy. I've had my DNA tested. I've done all sorts of genealogical research. My brother and I are sort of the family historians, and we've amassed at this point a pretty big archive of family treasures and heirlooms and documents and stuff like that. In 2013, shortly before my grandmother passed away, we had a chance to go and visit her and talk to her about a lot of family history. And at that point, she had a whole bunch of different scrapbooks and albums that she had put together. And we went through those, and I was really surprised and amazed and just super excited because in one of those scrapbooks, there were some drawings that she had done as a kid that were clearly comics. I knew as soon as I saw them that these were comics, comic strips rather than comic books, but it was very clear that they were comics. And not just that, but I could tell that she had been looking at comic strips and was copying the line work and copying the different artists and different characters. As she had labeled the different characters, so obviously that helped as well. But just some of them jumped right out. And I've done a little bit of research with the help of some of the people on the Classic Comics Forum. I've actually been able to identify one of the key drawings, sort of the coolest, best, and most interesting of the drawings. We've identified the source for it and know exactly when it was published. And so I want to show some of the stuff from my grandmother's sketchbook and go over the history of it a little bit and just pay a little bit of a tribute to my grandmother. So let's take a look at the sketchbook and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So obviously the one in the middle is the main one here that I want to talk about. We'll talk about some of the other ones after that. I knew as soon as she opened this scrapbook and I saw this drawing, I knew that it was copied from Alex Raymond from his Flash Gordon strip. The style of Alex Raymond, of course, is famous for comic book and comic strip fans, and comic book artists have been copying Alex Raymond's work for decades. So as soon as I saw it, I knew it was Alex Raymond, but I don't actually know that much about Raymond or Flash Gordon in particular. So I went to the Classic Comics Forum. With their help, we were able to narrow it down to the exact strip. So this aired here. I'm going to show, let me move this over so I can have some space here, and you can compare this to the original panel. I found this version online. Looks like it's a recolored version, but this was from the Sunday strip, May 5, 1940. So my grandmother, Mabel Henderson, was born in December of 1926. So when she drew this, she was right at the end of 8th grade. She was 13 years old. And what really struck me about this is that this is right around the age that I was getting into comics. And I started drawing when I was 11 or 12. And I was doing the exact same thing that she was doing here. I never realized I had any artistic ability at all until I started trying to copy art from the Who's Who in the DC universe. So this would have been in 85 when I was 12. And I remember copying some drawings there. It was a drawing of a character from Omega Men, and being like, wow, I'm almost able to copy this exactly. This is great. And then I just really got into drawing after that. However, I have to say, that my grandmother's art is way better than mine because I could never get faces or hands right, and she's just completely nailed every aspect of this drawing. I mean, it's really fantastic. And she's managed to copy all of the really delicate sort of line work in the dress here that's sort of draped over Dale's legs. Is really excellent. It's much better than I was able to do, not just at that age, but frankly, it's in terms of faces and hands and stuff. It's better than I can do now. I use photo um, models for all of my hands and faces because it's just hard for me to get those correct without that. So um, one of the reasons this was so surprising is that I didn't know my grandmother drew at all. So that's sort of still a bit of a question for me, is if she did anything later in life. She was an artisan, so she made furniture professionally. So she crafted furniture, but in terms of drawing, I have never seen any of her work until until she showed us this. So you can see here, this one is labeled Etiquette. Etiquette is another comic strip character from the time. There's another Etiquette drawing I'll show you in a second. But up here at the top row, she has not labeled the characters on these. But again, like, she's focusing on the facial work, and it's so much better than what I was able to do. I don't know who these characters are. I haven't really identified most of these specific sources outside of um, this one here, but assuming that she was doing these in the same time period, it's a little hard to tell because she has put together a scrapbook here, so they may be from later, but I have an idea of when she stopped drawing, and so I'll get into that in a minute. This one's interesting. This here, I think, is actually a stylized signature. It looks like an NH, but I think she was doing a stylized signature of her initials, MH for Mabel Henderson. Down here we have more. This one is listed as Bob Dolton. I don't know what strip he's from. The one in the middle is clearly another comic strip character, but again, I don't recognize it. Some of these I'm interested, like in this one here, whether it's actually a comic that she is copying, or it might be like a fine illustration from an advertisement or something. It looks kind of more like that to me. Here's some more. This is an unfinished one. And then up here we've got Blondie. I don't know who the guy on the left is, and I haven't identified yet who April is. Obviously another comic strip character. Up at the top, the one on the left is interesting. It looks to me to be maybe something from like a Prince Valiant, or something else, like a Robin Hood sort of female character. The work suggests to me along those lines that it's a more sort of action style thing. I've been stumped by the fire goddess, because this one I thought I could figure out the source of the fire goddess, but I haven't. So far I have not been able to figure out where the fire goddess is from, but my guess is that a similar Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers or one of those action strips. To me, this also looks like some of these look like they're earlier drawings than the Dale Arden picture that I started with. Just her line work isn't quite as delicate or as refined. To me, it looks like she drew this when she was younger. So if anyone has any idea, who's an expert more on comic strips, who some of these characters are or where they came from, I'd be really curious. So here's another Etiquette drawing. This one's really good. It's very delicate. Just really nice line work, very finely done. She also has this sequence that she did over here that's almost like animation in a way, of this diver coming down, and then another diver here. There's a character over here that she has labeled as Kitty. Now this is a little bit different than the previous pages because this is all on one sheet. This is one sheet of paper. It's actually on the back side of some kind of advertisement, but it's been glued down, so I don't want to mess with it. Um, I might try and figure out if there's a way to see through it, if there's a date or something where I can date the paper itself. And then down here, it's got her signature drawn by Mabel Henderson. But I've saved kind of the most interesting one for last for all us comic fans. It's very, very exciting to me, especially since we have a date of these from around 1940. Here it is here. Um, Now, this isn't necessarily Lois Lane, but I think it is Lois Lane. I think this is a drawing of Lois Lane from perhaps a Superman comic strip. None of the other ones here, I think, look like they're from comic books per se. But if this is a Lois Lane drawing from 1940, which it looks to me to be, it's just really, really exciting. Um, yeah. So if anyone's able to identify the specific source of this, like what strip it is, that would be great. And finally, I just wanted to mention this. I mentioned earlier I had an idea of when she stopped drawing. I don't know for sure, but you'll notice here she's got these fashions. She's designing. She's got these fashion designs. So she has the full figure with the front of the outfit, and then she has the little figure showing the back of the outfit. Right. This is a side view as well, and there's several of these. Um, it's really interesting. She told a story to me one time that when she was 15, she had just started dating my grandfather, and she was lying on the floor and she was drawing outfits for her paper dolls, and that her grandmother said to her, "If you're old enough to be dating boys, you're too old to be playing with paper dolls." And my grandmother scooped up all of her paper dolls and put them away and never played with them again. Now, I don't know if that's when she stopped drawing, but I was never aware of her doing anything artistic as an adult. I haven't seen any of her drawings that I would beyond these or anything I would date past these. And these again, they're clearly from the style of the clothing, you can tell that they're and the hair that they're still from the same period, early 1940s. So that's it for this time. If anyone has any insight to some of those other comic strips images, particularly the Lois Lane, I'd love to hear it and love to know about it. And I wish I, of course, had a chance now to talk more with my grandmother about her art and her drawing and her comics. And clearly, she was someone who really liked the comic strips. And I would love, of course, to be able to talk to her about anything now, but specifically the comics. This is just a real thrill for me to find these, and I'm really happy to share them with everyone. So thanks very much for watching. That's it for this time, and I'll see you next time.